Go to hell! Die! Don't... Go to hell! It's over. Come. Let's have some fun.
If you want to get more closely acquainted with Vergil's Doppelganger mechanic, I strongly encourage you to watch my first video, which is basically this Doppelganger guide, where I go very in-depth into the basics, the rudimentary aspects of this mechanic. The link to that video will be in the description below, so yeah. So first things first, before I start talking about the combo and the mistakes you can make and all that jazz, I should preface this by talking about my controls. So, I play this game using my mouse and keyboard. Yeah, really. Blasphemy, I know. But I think that if you've ever played a single game on your PC using a mouse and a keyboard, these controls should be familiar to you. I think they're very easy to grasp. So, just like with almost every game ever, WASD are the keys you use for movement. So W is forward, S is backwards, A is left, D is right. This is the equivalent to you using your analog stick for moving, like tilting it left, right, forward, backward. That's basically what I use. So again, W forward, S backward, A left, D right. Obviously, just like in every game ever, space is jump. So I jump using space. The left mouse button, unsurprisingly, is the attack button. Also, like in every game ever. The right mouse button is the button I use for Mirage Blades. So all my Mirage Blade attacks are mapped to the right button. The right mouse button, I mean. So that's basically it for these basic controls. Shift is the button I use for locking on. So when I lock on, I press Shift. In this game, you gotta be locked on for just about any attack ever. Only under specific circumstances should you release the lock on. But yeah, basically lock on is Shift in my case. So next up, we've got the trick action. So, trick up, down, air trick, all that stuff. I use E. So E is the button I use. So if I press E without locking on, that is trick up. If I press E while locking on, like Shift plus E, that is air trick, and I teleport. If I press back to forward plus E, or S plus W plus E, that is trick down. So, like I said, E is the trick action. That's the button I use for tricking, basically. R is the button I use for taunting. So that's the taunt button. Air taunts, lock-on taunts, doesn't matter. R is the button you gotta press for taunting. Moving on, I have F, and F is the button I use to charge my Sindel trigger. So I press and hold F, then I release it, and I basically go into my Sindel trigger mode. Moving on, we also have 1 and 2. So 1 is the button for changing the weapon to the right. So my layout is as follows. I use the default layout for my weapons, my arsenal. So it goes Yamato, Beowulf, Mirage Edge. So if I have the Yamato equipped and I press 1, it will switch to Beowulf, which is the weapon to its right. And if I press 1 again, it will switch from Beowulf to the Mirage Edge, which is the weapon to its right. If I have the Yamato equipped, and I press 2, it will go to the weapon that's on its left, and that is the Mirage Edge. If I press 2 again, it will switch to Beowulf. If I press 2 again, it will once again switch to the Yamato. So that's how this works. We're switching weapons left and right. That's how it works. Moving on, we have the Doppelganger buttons. So the buttons are as follows. X is the slow Doppelganger. This is a Doppelganger that is kind of delayed by about, I don't know, half a second or something. So that's X. C is the normal Doppelganger. He is slightly delayed, not by half a second, but like he's just not completely in sync with you. So that's C. And V is the haste version of the doppelganger who is completely in sync with you, meaning that he immediately reacts to your commands and he mimics your inputs, he registers them immediately and simply reacts to them. So, yeah. I deactivate the doppelganger by pressing Z. So that's how I do it. And, you know, that's pretty much that. Those are all the controls, really. There are some other things like, you know, using CTRL to basically lock onto multiple targets, or, I mean, switch the lock on, stuff like that, or using the arrows, using, you know, it just doesn't matter, really. These are the main things that you will need. So, if I say, I'm pressing D plus left mouse button, that means that I'm pressing right plus attack button. If I say I'm pressing S plus W plus left mouse button, that means I'm pressing back to forward plus attack button. Kind of like tilting your analog stick back and then forward and then pressing the attack button. So that's how it works. If I say back to forward plus right mouse button, or S plus W plus right mouse button, that is basically back to forward plus your Mirage Blade button. So heavy rain blades in my case. But don't worry, most of the time, like 99% of the time, I'll say right plus attack button instead of D plus left mouse button, because I feel like that's more universally comprehensible, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, these are my controls, and now let's talk about the actual combo. Now let's talk about the ice combo. So the first half of this combo, or well, the majority of this combo, is basically taken from one of Soli's combos. It's from his latest combo Mad. Like, he did a Vergil Doppelganger combo video, which is pretty cool. And this combo is definitely my favorite from that video. So I decided to basically, you know, recreate it in a way. I didn't do the whole thing, like I said, only up until Kick 13, and that's it. The second half of the combo, well, the part with the overdrive, I saw that I saw it in Bibsy's video, but I'm not sure if he's the one who came up with it, because I've seen the setup for, you know, overdrive and the taunt in a lot of combo videos and a lot of combos, so I'm not sure who came up with it, but this part in particular was definitely, I saw it in Bibsy's video first, so yeah. Alright, so you start the combo off by summoning the haste version of the doppelganger, you know, the one who's in sync with you. And you use Lunar Phase with Beowulf, which is right plus attack button. But you gotta hold the attack button, and I gotta explain exactly why and how certain things work, alright? So, basically, if you have the haste version of the doppelganger active, and you have the Yamato equipped, right? And you press right plus attack button, that is going to be rapid slash. So both you and the doppelganger will do rapid slash. If you press right and you hold the attack button with the Yamato, that is Rising Star. So Vergil and his doppelganger will both do Rising Star. However, don't forget that the doppelganger can only use the Yamato. He cannot use Beowulf, he cannot use the Mirage Edge, only the Yamato. So when you have Beowulf equipped and you press right plus attack button, Vergil will do Lunar Phase, but his doppelganger, who can only use the Yamato, will do the equivalent move for Yamato. So right plus attack button with Beowulf is Lunar Phase, but right plus attack button with the Yamato is Rapid Slash. So when you press right plus attack button, Vergil's doppelganger will do Rapid Slash, because he can only use the Yamato, and he copies your input, he mimics your commands. So I hope that's clear. But you're not supposed to do this. If you press right and you hold the attack button, Vergil will still do Lunar Phase with Beowulf, but his doppelganger will do Rising Star, because right plus holding the attack button, as we've already mentioned with the Yamato, is Rising Star. So, okay, with that out of the way, you understand how this works, right? The doppelganger can only use the Yamato, but he copies your input, so when you press right and hold the attack button, with Beowulf, that's Lunar Phase, but since the doppelganger can only use the Yamato, that is Rising Star. But here's the catch. You know how Rising Star essentially has these two slashes, like these two hits? Yeah, well, what you're supposed to do is after summoning the haste version of the Doppelganger, you press right and you hold the attack button, so Vergil does Lunar Phase and his Doppelganger ends up doing Rising Star. But after the first slash, the first hit of Rising Star, like after the Doppelganger has already finished the first hit, you immediately call the Doppelganger back to your position by pressing V. In my case, I call him back to my position, and I press right plus attack button without holding the attack button, which will cause the Doppelganger to do rapid slash now. So, okay, let me explain this again. You basically press right and you hold the attack button, and that is going to cause the Doppelganger to do Rising Star. But you don't want the full Rising Star, you only want the first hit of Rising Star to slightly launch the enemy into the air. Now, after that first hit, you immediately summon the Doppelganger, you call him back to your position by pressing V, and before Vergil is done with Lunar Phase, you basically input right plus attack button without holding the attack button, so that his Doppelganger can do Rapid Slash now. And that's basically it. That's, like, the most important thing, alright? Okay, so now you basically switch to the Yamato, and you use Void Slash, which is back to forward plus attack button. Now, before Vergil is even done sheathing his sword and finishing Void Slash, you input left plus holding the attack button. Alright, so since the Doppelganger is basically on the right side, when you press left plus attack button and you hold it with the Yamato, that is going to be Rising Star. Left plus attack button and holding the attack button will cause the Doppelganger to use Rising Star. That's really important. Because if you don't hold the attack button, if you only press left plus attack button without holding the attack button, the Doppelganger will do Rapid Slash. Because when you're on the right side and you press left plus attack button without holding it, that's Rapid Slash. But when you hold it, that's Rising Star. And the Doppelganger basically mimics your commands, your input, which is why he will end up doing Rising Star if you press left and hold the attack button. But that's not enough. You need to hold the attack button for a very long time, and then release it so that Vergil and the Doppelganger can end up doing this regular Judgment Cut. So it's imperative, it's really important that you do a regular Judgment Cut. Because if you do a perfect Judgment Cut with that perfect timing, if you release it perfectly, what's going to happen is Vergil's Doppelganger will go back to your position. So, you know, when you do a perfect Judgment Cut, Vergil's Doppelganger automatically goes back to his position, but you don't want that. You want the Doppelganger to stay where he is. You want him to stay on that side, so that, you know, basically Vergil can do this backdash and they can both hit the enemy with Judgment Cut from, you know, opposite sides. Alright, so now you switch to the Mirage Edge, and you basically use Drive, which is back to forward plus attack button. And now, you switch to the Yamato, and you use Rapid Slash, which is right plus attack button, right? Also, the Doppelganger will do upper slash 1 here. You should completely ignore that, because it has no bearing on the combo. The reason he does upper slash is because, basically, Vergil is on the left side, and he does Rapid Slash. Rapid Slash is right plus attack button. But the Doppelganger is on the right side, and as you already know, he copies your commands, and if you're on the right side and you have the Yamato and you press right plus attack button, that is upper slash 1. Which is exactly why Vergil's Doppelganger does upper slash here, because he basically reacts to you pressing right plus attack button. But he's on that side, so that's why he does it. But it has no bearing on the combo, so just ignore it. He doesn't actually do it, he tries to do it. Like, he starts, but I cancel this upper slash that he's trying to do by calling him back to my position, right? And inputting upper slash myself, right? Okay, so once Vergil is done with Rapid Slash, once he's in position, like here, basically what you need to do is you immediately call the Doppelganger back to your position by pressing V, again, and when you call the Doppelganger back to your position, you basically input right plus holding the attack button. What's going to happen if you do that is the Doppelganger will end up doing upper slash 2 with the Yamato. Because if you have the Yamato equipped and you're on the right side, and you press right plus attack button and you hold it, that's upper slash 2. And the reason Vergil won't do upper slash 2 is because he is too busy sheathing his sword. When Vergil is sheathing his sword, he doesn't react to melee commands at all. As you can see here, basically. It doesn't matter what you press, he will not react. But the Doppelganger will. So basically you press right and you hold the attack button so that the Doppelganger can do upper slash 2 and launch the enemy into the air. But you need to hold the attack button, and because if you don't hold it, the Doppelganger will only do upper slash 1, right? And you want the Doppelganger to launch himself into the air as well. That's really important. But, so here's the thing. You need to hold the attack button for a very long time. So right, and you hold the attack button and you keep holding it, and then you release it in time to do another regular Judgment Cut. Again, it's incredibly important not to do a perfect Judgment Cut, because if you do, the Doppelganger will go back to your position. So you do a regular Judgment Cut, right plus attack button, you hold it, you release it, and you get this regular Judgment Cut. Alright, so now that they're done hitting the enemy with another Judgment Cut, you basically switch to Beowulf and you use Kick 13, which is back to forward plus attack button, or in my case, S plus W plus left mouse button, right? And with Beowulf, back to forward plus attack button is Kick 13. But with the Amato, back to forward plus attack button is Void Slash. And since the Doppelganger can only use the Amato, when you press back to forward plus attack button, he will do Void Slash, right? So that's basically it. So now the Doppelganger will catch the enemy. They'll catch them while they're falling and basically trap them with Void Slash. And Vergil will simply do Kick 13 to basically close in on the opponent. It's very important not to do the full version of Kick 13, because you have the version of Kick 13 where you press back to forward and you hold the attack button, and that will cause Vergil to do these additional 2 kicks, these launching kicks, and you don't want that. You just want the normal Kick 13, so you press back to forward and you don't hold the attack button, alright? So Vergil does Kick 13, and the Doppelganger does Void Slash, and now you basically deactivate the Doppelganger, you switch to the Mirage Edge, and you press back to forward plus attack button, and you use Overdrive. And now it's important to know exactly when to input the heavy rain blades. As you're charging it, you gotta make sure that the opponent is low enough in the air. Not too low, but definitely not too high, because that's really important. So you basically make sure that the opponent is, around this height, around this altitude, and you input the heavy rain blades, like I did here. After this, you charge the Mirage Edge, you charge Overdrive 3 times, and as the opponent starts falling, you input Blistering Blades. You press W plus right mouse button. You release the Overdrive beam, basically you release the attack button. After this, you switch to the Amato and you use Rapid Slash. And now, as the opponent is, trapped on this beam, Overdrive, you basically use the triple S, Let's Have Some Fun, Todd, and make sure that the opponent lands directly onto your, mini summon sword that you're spinning on your finger. So, yeah. Like I said, a lot of the mistakes in this combo stem from the fact that I didn't hold the left mouse button long enough, or I ended up holding it when I shouldn't have, and that's basically it. So you can see here how the Doppelganger didn't move. I think this has to do with the stage, because this ice stage is incredibly small. It is so annoying how small it is. So yeah, you can definitely, that can happen. But that's like, I don't want to call it a glitch, but that's a stage issue. It shouldn't happen in the Void. Also, you gotta make sure you're a little, there's a considerable amount of distance between you and the enemy before you do the combo, before you even do Lunar Phase, because as you can see here, I was kind of close to the enemy, even though I didn't think that was the case, and the last hit of Lunar Phase ended up hitting them. So you gotta make sure there's some distance between you and the enemy. Even if you think there's enough distance, think again, just take a step back. So yeah. One issue you could have is, for example, you might call the Doppelganger back to your position too early before they even hit the opponent with the first hit of Rising Star. Or, and this was an incredibly common mistake, probably among the most common ones, you can sometimes, you call the doppelganger back to your position after he uses the first hit of Rising Star, and then you use Rapid Slash, but the enemy will still be too high up in the air, as you can see here, and then Void Slash won't connect because they're too high up. So that's really annoying, but you'll get the hang of it eventually. It did happen to me. Like, I think that was like the most common mistake or the second most common mistake. I'm not entirely certain. But yeah, like sometimes even after you call the doppelganger back to your position after, they do the first hit of Rising Star, the enemy will simply be too high up in the air. And I guess that has to do with you not calling them early enough or something. You're not calling the doppelganger back early enough to your position. Another thing that can happen, obviously, is that you don't hold the left mouse button. So you do, the doppelganger ends up doing Rapid Slash instead of Rising Star. And conversely, you can also do the opposite, because after the doppelganger is called back to your position, you're supposed to make sure not to hold the left mouse button. So the doppelganger needs to do Rapid Slash instead of Rising Star. So you could, screw that up, and you might hold the left mouse button, and the doppelganger will do Rising Star instead of Rapid Slash. So you can end up doing Rapid Slash instead of Rising Star at first, but then again, you also have this possibility to make this mistake in the second part when you call the doppelganger back to your position, where you hold the left mouse button and the doppelganger ends up doing Rising Star instead of Rapid Slash. So that's one of the mistakes you can make. The second mistake that you can make is that you gotta make sure to basically, after doing Void Slash, you gotta make sure to press A plus left mouse button, and you gotta make sure to hold the left mouse button, because you want the doppelganger to do Rising Star and not Rapid Slash. So you got to make sure to hold the left mouse button. See, all of these mistakes are kind of already the same. They've all got to do with, like, hold the left mouse button if you want to do Rising Star, and don't hold the left mouse button if you want to do Rapid Slash. But, muscle memory can be a bitch, so sometimes that can be a problem. Another mistake you can make is that you might end up doing the perfect judgment cut, and that is something you don't want. You don't want that perfect timing. You want the doppelganger to do judgment cut with you like this, because if you do a perfect judgment cut, the doppelganger will immediately automatically go back to your position. Another mistake that can happen is, for example, after using Overdrive and using Rapid Slash, you gotta make sure to call the doppelganger back to your position and use D plus left mouse button and hold the left mouse button, because you want the doppelganger to do the full upper slash, where the doppelganger launches himself into the air with the enemy as well. And then, make sure to hold the left mouse button as you're doing this and then release it. A lot of the mistakes I made came from the fact that I simply was not holding the left mouse button while doing this for some reason. I don't know why, but it definitely did happen. So here you can see how I basically wasn't holding the left mouse button, so I ended up not doing a judgment cut. So after this, you gotta make sure to be really fast. Sometimes, like, this was also an incredibly common mistake, the doppelganger would simply not do Void Slash. And I think that has to do with the stage, but at the same time, it could also be something else. I don't really know. Actually, now that I think about it, I think it has to do with me inputting Void Slash, or S plus W plus left mouse button, too early. So I pressed S plus W plus left mouse button while I was on the ground, and the doppelganger was in midair, so he didn't react. You gotta wait for the doppelganger to be on the ground, because, if the doppelganger is in midair, he obviously won't react to your commands. So that's what I think happened here. I probably pressed S plus W plus left mouse button, or back to forward plus melee, a little too early before the doppelganger was on the ground, and that's why he didn't react. That's why he didn't do Void Slash. And sometimes the doppelganger would do Void Slash, but it would be too late and the opponent would already be on the ground. In some cases, I would end up hitting the enemy with kick 13, which is not something you're supposed to do. Here, the doppelganger did Rapid Slash instead of Void Slash, so I guess he reacted to W plus left mouse button instead of S plus W plus left mouse button. So yeah. And finally, another mistake you can make is, you might end up doing the full kick 13. So again, if you do a full kick 13, Vergil will do these additional two, kicks that will launch the opponent into the air, and you don't want that. And to avoid that, you gotta make sure to press S plus W plus left mouse button and not hold the left mouse button. So again, it's all got to do with holding or not holding the left mouse button in this combo. Because sometimes you want it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you got Rapid Slash, sometimes you got Rising Star, and sometimes, you got Kick 13. And finally, after using Overdrive, you really gotta make sure to use the Heavy Rain Blades. You gotta make sure not to use them too early. You can also fuck up by using them too late, but you gotta make sure to calculate the altitude. You don't want the opponent to be too high up in the air when you input these Heavy Rain Blades. You want them to be somewhere, like, around this height, as you can see here. And you also don't want them to be too low on the ground, because then they might be on the ground as the overdrive beam is hitting them. And, yeah, basically, you could make these mistakes. I made a lot of these fails where, because of this, Vergil ended up not, the enemy didn't land on Vergil's summon sword, his Mirage Blade that's around his hand, and it just looked so insulting. Just look at this. Like, Vergil's just standing there. He's going, let's have some fun. He's expecting the enemy to land on his finger, and, like, nothing happens, it's just so embarrassing in a way. But yeah, like I said, this combo is actually not that hard, honestly. It's really not that hard if you know what you're doing. And yeah, like I said, the main issues I had were the Lunar Phase thing, where, sometimes Void Slash would end up not hitting the opponent, because even though I called the Doppelganger back to my position, the enemy would simply be too high up in the air for some reason. And also another mistake was the whole thing with, not holding the left mouse button while using the second Judgment Cut with the Doppelganger, before Kick 13. So, I ended up not doing Judgment Cut at all. So, yeah. And here you can see how I basically ended up using the wrong taunt. So basically, like I said, I used this trainer, and you gotta go to like taunt selector, and then select Vergil, and make sure to replace his lock-on taunt with Let's Have Some Fun, as well as his S-rank lock-on taunt as well. And then use the lock-on taunt. So you press Shift plus R in my case. So you use the lock-on taunt, and since you replaced it with the Let's Have Some Fun taunt, that's what you're gonna do. Or you could wait to have a triple S rank, but it's like not very consistent. It's not likely. But what I did here was I didn't lock on. I did a regular taunt. I just pressed R instead of Shift plus R, and Vergil was, he did that taunt with Nero's arm. So, yeah.
Go to hell. It's over. Die. Let's have some fun.